Welcome back, everybody. My name is Trini, and I am the Batquad. This is a channel where I go through my personal DVD collection from A through Z. And this is part 4 of my Batman episode, so let's get going. For this episode, I'm doing something a little bit different. Normally, it's DVDs that I'm reviewing, but for this video, I actually don't have the DVDs for this movie. I actually have the 4K videos. So this is a point in my life when I stopped buying DVDs, and I didn't buy this movie series until it came out on 4K. So I'm going a little bit out of my format here, but yeah, I mean, it's for Batman, so I had to do it. There's no way that I was going to review all the Batman movies and skip out all the latest movies that came out just because I didn't have them on DVD. So with that being said, I'm a little bit nervous about this episode because in the Dark Knight trilogy, Christopher Nolan's movie, a lot of people, they love the Christian Bale Batman. And I'm going to have a lot of things to say about this trilogy, so let's get into it. So the first movie I'm going to review on this episode is going to be Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins. Batman Begins was released in June of 2005, and I actually went to the movies to go see it with my buddy Mario. We went on an early screening. We went on a Thursday because it was released on Friday, and it was a late night screening. Honestly, I was a little bit nervous because Batman and Robin was the last Batman movie that came out in '97, and you all know how I feel about that movie. I was nervous, but the good thing about it was leading up to this release, I'd heard that Christopher Nolan was the director and that the writer was going to be David S. Goyer. And Christopher Nolan had done a few movies before Batman Begins, and I'd seen at least 2 of them. One of them was Memento, which was a really amazing mess with your mind kind of movie. And then the second one that I saw was Insomnia, which I really didn't care for, but honestly, I should give it another look since it's been a few years. But yeah, I liked his style. I liked the pace of his movies. I liked that his movies just seemed a little bit different and more mature. So I was very interested in the way he would bring Batman back to the big screen. And then David S. Goyer, he had been writing quite a few movies through the 90s. And then he also played a big part in the Blade movies. He was a writer for all 3 movies, and he actually directed the last one. Along with the great writer and director, let's talk about that cast. You can't talk about the Dark Knight trilogy without mentioning Christian Bale. Now, Christian Bale, if you remember, I'd already reviewed one of his movies, one of my favorite, and that's American Psycho. And he did amazing in that movie. And I remember watching that movie and thinking, when he's in that suit and he's walking around, he kind of has a dual identity already. I thought he'd be the perfect Bruce Wayne anyways. I mean, he just had that good look to him. So when it came to the casting and I heard that Christian Bale was cast as Batman, I mean, I was over the moon about that casting. I thought, wow, it's pretty good. Before he was cast as Batman, he was in this movie called The Machinist, and he had lost an insane amount of weight. He just looked like he was skin and bones in it. And that was the last movie I saw him in. So I thought, man, I know he had done it for the role, but was he going to be able to bulk up and look like Batman? Was he going to be physically imposing? And sure enough, by the time this guy showed up on screen, I guess he'd put on more weight than expected and was actually asked to lose a little bit of his muscle because he was just too bulky for the suit. I mean, he looked great by the time he came out on screen, and he looked like a good physical Batman, way better than the last 4 guys. I mean, at this point, he just looked like he would be the best physical representation of Batman on screen to date. What about the rest of the cast? We have Michael Caine as Alfred, Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon, Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox, Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul, Cillian Murphy as Scarecrow, and Katie Holmes, who she wasn't playing anybody from the comic books. She was a made-up character named Rachel Dawes. Gary Oldman, I thought he was amazing. I mean, he looked like he just came out right out of the comic books. The way they had his costume and his hair and the glasses, that dude was Commissioner Gordon. And bringing in the character of Lucius Fox, who was not in the previous movies, what an ingenious way that they brought him in as Bruce's tech guy, the one who kind of helps him make up all the gadgets and costume for Batman later on. So with a new movie and a new vision, of course, there's going to be something else new, and that's the music. So the music was made by James Newton Howard and Hans Zimmer. I guess they collaborated on the music, and the soundtrack is actually, it's not bad. I mean, I really like the first movie. It's not as iconic as the Danny Elfman music. I mean, that music is constantly in my head. It's constantly in my head when I think of Batman. You just kind of can't get that out of your head. The second one that can't get out of my head would be the score from the animated series, which is also just Danny Elfman. This score, it's different. but it is distinctly Batman, if that makes any sense. I mean, there are times when I do find myself humming this version when I think of Batman as well. But it's just not quite as iconic for me. It's good. It's exciting. I do like it when I'm watching the movie, when the chase scenes go on or the fight scenes. It's definitely distinctly Batman, and I don't mind it at all. So Batman Begins does something that the other previous movies either were afraid to do or just never got into, was it talks a little bit about Batman's origin, and not just the death of his parents, but actually everything that goes with it. How did he train? How did he become Batman? Why did he choose to be Batman? It's not normal for somebody to say, oh, I'm going to put on a costume and pretend to be a giant bat. So this movie tackles a lot of that, and it seems kind of plausible because this movie, the way Christopher Nolan did it, is he made it a little bit more realistic. And that was one of the words that was used when I was describing this trilogy. In this movie, even though it's very much a comic book movie, it did have that sense of realism to it. But as the movies go along, and especially in the third one, I mean, the realism goes right out the door. But for this movie, and especially in part two, it does seem a little bit more realistic. And I appreciated that in a Batman movie. So let's get into the plot of the movie. So just like the title suggests, Batman Begins, this is the how he begins and how he learns to be Batman. After Bruce's parents were murdered, Bruce tries to learn what it's like to be a criminal so that he can fight criminals, but he's not sure how. Eventually, he runs into somebody calling himself Henry Ducard, and he leads him to Ra's al Ghul, who is the leader of the League of Shadows. It's the leader of the League of Shadows. Wow, it's hard to say. Anyway, he trains with this league, and eventually they show him how to fight. Although at some point, Bruce is showing off different fighting styles while he's fighting Henry Ducard. Henry Ducard being played by Liam Neeson. Well, while he's fighting him, he's showing off these different fighting styles. Where he learned these fighting styles, I don't know. It's not really said in the movie, but you can assume that he's learned these fighting styles throughout the years, and he's not quite honed in these skills because Liam Neeson, he just really just beats him up. So for an unknown amount of time, he trains with the League of Shadows, and eventually it gets to a point where they're forcing him to either kill somebody or be killed. Of course, Bruce being Batman and not wanting to kill anybody, he decides he's not going to murder this one because this person should be brought to a court or trial. So in order for Bruce to escape, he winds up setting off an explosion, ironically, killing several of the League of Shadows people. I mean, they're kind of like ninjas. Lots of them blow up in the explosion. So much for not murdering anybody. And when he gets back to Gotham with Alfred, the two of them, along with Lucius Fox, the three of them, I guess, they concoct a way to make up a costume and to use some sort of gadgets, and gets the Batmobile in this movie, which they called the Tumbler. And the three of them all come up with an alter ego, which winds up being Batman. And the reason why he chooses Batman in this movie is because they show him as a child he's afraid of bats. The reason why he's afraid of bats is because he fell into a cave, and the bats came around and they scared him, and they started giving him nightmares when he was younger. As he gets older, he's still inherently afraid of bats. And with his training with Ra's al Ghul, he kind of overcame that fear. And so he decides to take on the Batman persona because he wants to instill that kind of fear into the bad guys. In order to fight crime in Gotham City, Batman needed an ally. One of the reasons why he goes out to Commissioner Gordon is because when his parents were killed, as a police officer, Gordon actually comforted young Bruce Wayne, and he always remembered that. So when he came back to Gotham City, and now he reaches out to him in his Batman persona, and he convinces him that he's going to try and help take down the criminal element. Throughout the movie, Gordon starts to trust him, and so they build up a partnership. So where does Katie Holmes fit in this movie? Early in the movie, I think it's right in the beginning, Rachel and Bruce Wayne are outside playing, and that's how he falls into this cave, and that they've kind of grown up together. When Bruce returns from his travels, he runs back into Rachel, and at this point, Rachel's, of course, she's older, and now she works for the DA's office. And in the movie, it's explained that all levels of government are somewhat corrupt. Bruce is finding people that he can work with so that he can kind of clear out that corruption and get rid of the mobsters. So he recruits Rachel as a DA and Gordon on the police department, and he believes that between the three of them, they can somehow solve the crime problem in Gotham City. So Batman, he's on track to take out Carmine Falcone, which was the mob boss of Gotham City. And what he doesn't realize is that Falcone, he's actually working with Cillian Murphy's character of Jonathan Crane. And Jonathan Crane, he's working for Ra's al Ghul, and between the two of them, what they're doing is they are putting this fear toxin into the water system of Gotham City, and no one knows that's happening. And what's also happened is that the League of Shadows, they've actually taken an experimental Wayne Tech. This is where it's not necessarily realistic, but some sort of microwave contraption that's supposed to evaporate water. And the whole plan is that when they fill the water system with this product and then they vaporize the water, it's going to turn into gas, and that gas is going to infect all of Gotham City, causing people to go crazy and tear the place apart. Well, at least that's their plan anyway. So throughout the movie, Batman builds his allies to fight crime. He figures out that Jonathan Crane, or the Scarecrow, is working for Ra's al Ghul. Batman eventually he fights Ra's al Ghul and the League of Shadows after they've implemented their plan with the fear toxin going across Gotham City, and ultimately he saves the day. Now, was this a good movie? I mean, looking back when I watched the movie then, I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was such an improvement from the last couple of movies, especially from Batman and Robin. I came out of there happy. I don't know if my buddy Mario liked it, but I think he did because he's always making fun of me about being a Batman fan. Regardless of that, I mean, I think it was a good movie. I've watched it over and over throughout the years. I like the acting, the music. On this most recent rewatch for this review, I really like Batman Begins. I think it's a slightly underrated movie because it gets overshadowed by the next movie, The Dark Knight. But Batman Begins was a solid Batman entry, especially with the new feeling of it, the new direction, the new music, the new actors. And I couldn't wait for the second one, especially with the tease at the end of the Joker. The movie did almost everything right. So with all the good things that I talked about it, with the direction, the movie, the writing, the actors, let's talk a little bit about some of the negatives. Some of the things that I don't like start a little bit in this movie, but definitely gets worse and worse as the movies go on, is the addition of certain characters for subplots that just seem to be thrown in there just for dramatic purposes only. Really, when you cut out the character, it really becomes very inconsequential to the story. And it's a little bit distracting upon rewatches because even though this character might be doing something within this movie, and I'm specifically talking about Rutger Hauer's character. Honestly, I don't remember the name of the character he's playing, but Rutger Hauer, he's part of the board, the corporate arm of the Wayne Foundation, and I guess he's the one that's been in charge since his father's passed. He's introduced as kind of this antagonistic guy towards not only Bruce Wayne but also towards Lucius Fox. He talks down to Lucius Fox for unknown reasons. They never really say why, and it's almost like they set up a joke early on where he says, didn't you get the memo, when he kind of fires Morgan Freeman. Almost sets up this joke for at the end of the movie when Morgan Freeman tells Rutger Hauer, hey, didn't you get the memo, when Rutger Hauer gets fired. So it's like this long joke that was set up early on, just to be told at the end of the movie. But really, the character is very inconsequential. They could have just as easily had Lucius Fox be the head of Wayne Corporation and not had this character in it at all. But for whatever reason, they threw him in. It's like a little bit of drama throughout the movie, but really unnecessary drama because you're giving screen time to somebody where screen time could be spent somewhere else with another character that might have deserved it a little bit more. The Batman costume. I'm not sure that I like this one. I'm not a fan of the cowl, the headpiece of it. I think the body part is okay. I love the way that they conceive it and how they built it and the little origin story they give to his bat outfit. I do like that, but I'm not a huge fan of the mask itself. And I know that they tried to describe it. They wanted to give it like a powerful look with a powerful neck. I was just never a fan of that. I did like the more streamlined look that they came up with for the next two movies. I mean, it was just okay. It was okay suit. I did like the cape. I did like how they incorporated him kind of flying around with the cape, the way it's almost like a parachute and it allows him to glide. I did like that aspect of it. but I just wasn't a huge fan of the outfit. But it doesn't matter because that gets improved on in the next movie. And last but not least, as far as negatives on this movie, is the fighting, the editing. I don't know that Christopher Nolan was known for fighting movies, because in the last couple of movies that I saw that he directed, I mean, it wasn't really a thing. But the editing that they chose for this movie during the fight sequences, it's almost unwatchable. The quick cut edits and the jumping around, and I think the first time that Batman shows up on screen and he's attacking these guys at the docks, I think that time, the first time that it was used, was pretty ingenious, because you're kind of feeling what the bad guys are feeling, because they're looking for Batman and he's kind of hiding, and they don't know that what's attacking them because it's the first time he's done anything, and he's snatching guys from the ground. I think that it's trying to put us in their shoes, because they don't know what's happening and things are happening so quickly and it's confusing. But unfortunately, the rest of the fighting sequences throughout the movie, they're all like that. It's just very quick edits and jumps, and you don't really know what's happening on screen. And that was one of my big complaints from the Schumacher era and the Tim Burton era movies, is the fighting sequences were always lacking. And in this movie, it was a little bit disappointing, especially considering if you watch the behind the scenes, the stunt coordinators, they actually came up with a fighting style to give to Batman that was unique, that was combining so many different fighting styles, and try to come up with something believable enough that if you jumped into a group of men, that you could conceivably take them down. And it's unfortunate that these guys took the time for them to come up with this, and then it's not even shown in the movie, or at least you can't see it. So for the running countdown I have for Batman killing bad guys in the movies, in this movie, I'm going to be generous and just say he killed about 10 of the ninjas from the League of Shadows somewhere in the beginning when he caused that explosion. He even has a point at the end with Ra's al Ghul, where when he's on the train, he says, "I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you either." And then he just jumps off the train, allowing Ra's al Ghul to fall to his death. I mean, I count that as a killing too. So let's just say he killed at least 11 people in this movie. One of the things I've noticed about Christopher Nolan movies throughout the years, and this is pretty early on in his career still, a lot of times, a lot of the characters, the way people talk in the movie, it's not the way people talk in real life. It's not very conversational language, which is funny, because a lot of the conversations that he has with Alfred, or that he has with Lucius Fox, they have this very casual way of speaking with each other a lot of times. But then at other times, characters like Rachel Dawes, she gives like these weird, goofy speeches that just nobody talks like that. It's not Katie Holmes' fault, because honestly, I think she's a pretty good actress. I've seen her in a lot of things. I saw her grow up in Dawson's Creek, and she'd been in a few other movies before this one. She was given a lot of lines in this movie that are this just not her fault. And unfortunately, the two of them, Rachel and Bruce Wayne, they don't have a whole lot of romantic chemistry in this movie. And I'm not sure that they were supposed to. I know that they grew up as friends and they see each other later as adults. And it seems like Bruce may have a crush on her. But Rachel, as a character, it seems like she's going out with the current DA, and she's not even thinking about having a relationship with him. And then at the end of the movie, when they have their little conversation after all the excitement's over, and she knows that Bruce is Batman now, they have this conversation at the end where she's like, "Well, I can't really be with you because I don't think Bruce Wayne ever came back. I think that you are now Batman with the mask on or off." It just seems to me like she's just basically saying, "Hey, we're going to be friends. I've been your friend your whole life, and I'm still going to be your friend. And I hope that you're going to get over this Batman thing." That's important, because by the second movie, it just seems to me like they didn't have a real romantic relationship ever. And I guess with reading comic books and being a Batman fan, I'm okay with, because a lot of times his relationships are very short lived, and he may fall in love with a character in the comic books for a short time, but ultimately it never really works out. So that's how I kind of thought this was going, especially in this movie. Maybe he had feelings for her. Maybe he's always loved her, but his desire to fight crime and avenge his parents was stronger than any kind of love he might have for a girl. I was okay with the way it ended with them just being friends and her being, I don't know, like his inside girl in the DA's office. So when it comes to Batman Begins, I mean, I really liked the mood of the movie. I liked the acting. I liked the music. I loved the casting of Christian Bale as Batman. I liked the more realistic approach to the movie and to the character and to the character's world. I thought the cast was very solid, and for once they were using actual characters from the comic books in the movies and using them in the way that actually was respectful to the comics, especially with characters like Commissioner Gordon, who, even though he was in the previous movies, was really not used at all. I enjoyed Batman Begins when I saw it in the movie theater, and I continue to enjoy it now. So if I have to give Batman Begins a wheelchair rating, I have to give it a solid 3.5 out of 4 wheelchairs. All right, so moving right along, Batman Begins was a modest hit and was an actual critical hit because fans and critics actually liked it and felt like it was a good restart to the Batman movies. With that being said, of course, there's going to be a sequel with almost the entire cast from Batman Begins returning to reprise their characters. The only actor that wasn't coming back was Katie Holmes. Katie Holmes was replaced by Maggie Gyllenhaal because I guess Katie didn't want to come back, or there was some sort of scheduling conflict or whatever, because I remember there was a lot of controversy. People didn't like her in Batman Begins, and I thought that was a little bit unfair, even though she wasn't necessarily the caliber of actors as some of the others were, except for some of the really bad dialogue that she was given. But otherwise, I thought she did fine. And of course, the Joker was being played by Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger, up to this point, had been in several movies. The most recent movie that he was in was Brokeback Mountain, where it was a well-respected movie and he was being taken as more of a serious actor. So when the announcement was for him to be Joker in the next movie, I myself, I didn't mind. I thought, hey, you know what? Let's see what this guy can do. Honestly, I trusted Christopher Nolan. I think he was very spot on all of his casting choices. And as you all know, I mean, this guy won a posthumous Academy Award because after the movie came out, he passed away. I mean, that just goes to show he was only in this movie for about 15 minutes or so of screen time. You can tell that this is the Joker's movie. And the movie we're talking about today is going to be The Dark Knight. Now, The Dark Knight came out in July of 2008, and I went with, by that point, I was married, so I went with my wife to go see it. This movie has some historical significance because it's the first comic book movie to cross $1 billion. Now, a lot of movies have done it since then, but Batman was the first. I remember when I watched this movie, I just thought it was so good because it wasn't just a good Batman movie. It just felt like a good, solid crime drama, which was new because usually when you go to see a comic book movie, it always feels very comic booky. And in the last movie, Batman Begins, I know there was this push for more realism. And in this movie, it definitely took that realism to the next level because it felt like I was watching a movie on par with, say, Goodfellas. It was just a good crime drama with a lot of comic book stuff sprinkled in. That was a good difference from a comic book movie with just a little bit of reality sprinkled in. So I thought it was a good twist on that. I mean, it really paid off because obviously not only was it a critical darling, the masses loved the movie and it won several Academy Awards. So it was definitely going in the right direction. Not only did the directors and several of the actors return, but the composers returned as well. So James Newton Howard and Hans Zimmer came back, and this time they did something different with Joker's theme. They did this thing where it just sounded like, I mean, it didn't sound like nails on a chalkboard, but it gave you that same feeling of tension when he's around. And not only does the acting and the makeup and everything that he's doing convey that, but it's just also conveyed in the music. And it just adds to the character and to any scene that Joker's in. Now, this movie, they give a story credit to David S. Goyer, but it shows that the screenplay was written by Christopher Nolan and Jonathan Nolan, Christopher's brother. I remember this being the first movie that I became aware of Jonathan Nolan, and I was interested to see what the two brothers could come up with as a movie. And obviously they did really well. So let's talk about some of the positives of this movie. I really loved the music, the directing, The cinematography was gorgeous. I really liked the actors in it. I like the redesign of the Batman costume. I like the way they incorporated in story, where he basically said, "I want to be able to turn my head." It's a much better looking costume than the first movie. I think it's much more streamlined. But when you see it with the lights on, when you actually see, I don't know, like production photos of the costume, it's a little bit busy with all these little bits and pieces of armor that are on the costume, and it looks kind of silly when it's in the light, but when it's on in the dark and it's in the movie and the way they film it, the way they light it, it's just a very cool silhouette because they kept the cape and the ears, the longer ears, and it just looks cooler on film. And just as a little side note, one of my friends, Jason, his uncle Ray, he's a painter, and he actually painted me a picture of the costume. Isn't that cool? Thanks, Ray. One of the new characters in this movie was Aaron Eckhart, who plays Harvey Dent, and he also becomes Two-Face. But he was a very positive addition to this movie. I think that the relationship between him and Rachel Dawes, now played by Maggie Gyllenhaal, I mean, I thought that their relationship was really good. I think they had a lot of chemistry with each other. So the two of them actually were great additions to the movie. Let's talk about Heath Ledger's Joker. I mean, that guy, anytime he's on screen, you get my full attention. Just the way the costume looks, the way the makeup looks. He looks disgusting and dirty, and his yellow teeth and the messy makeup and the scars on his face and the way he talks, the way he does this with his lips. I mean, it's really disgusting and disturbing. And you believe that this guy is dangerous, and you believe that he's going to do all these evil things that he says he's going to do. I mean, it's just a great performance. Like I said, I could go on and on about how good his performance is, but if you compare him to, say, Jack Nicholson's Joker or Cesar Romero's Joker, I mean, there really is no comparison. Those guys did very awesome Jokers for their time period and for what movie that they were in. But for a modern, more realistic, more comic book accurate Joker, Heath Ledger is definitely the one for me. So let's talk a little bit about the plot. I forgot about that part. So the plot of the movie is Batman's been operating in Gotham City for about a year now since the last movie. And the organized criminals, they're feeling the pinch of Batman. People are afraid to deal drugs and to be out in the open with their criminal activities like they used to be. So they're kind of in hiding now. Gotham also has a new DA in Harvey Dent, and this guy's going balls to the wall trying to put these bad guys in jail and to clean up Gotham. Batman and Gordon at the beginning of the movie, they figured out this plan to take out the organized crime, and they're going to do that through their money. So they figure out this plan and they bring in Harvey Dent to figure out a way to make sure that they take their money, which basically takes away their power and also puts them all in jail. And in order to enact this plan, they need to get their hands on their bookkeeper, who happens to be this Chinese businessman. All the mob bosses realizing this, they decide to hire the Joker to take out Batman. So the Joker, he enacts this plot to take out the Batman, and he causes chaos throughout Gotham City, and he kind of goes off on his own to do his own thing eventually. And it's just a really good movie of Batman versus the Joker with Gotham City caught in the middle. So what are some of the things that I like about this movie? I mean, besides Joker and the music and everything else, one of the things I like the most about this movie is the introduction of the Batquad. Now, I think the name is stupid. I mean, just like Tumblr, it's almost like they were embarrassed to call it the Batmobile. But in this movie, instead of calling it the Bat Cycle, they call it the Batpod. I don't think it's actually called Batpod in the movie. Well, in this movie, I know they say it in the third one. But in this movie, I don't know why it's called Batpod, because at the time, iPods were popular, and this has nothing to do with an iPod. So why they called it a Batpod, it doesn't make sense. But it's pretty cool. It's a motorcycle with guns on it, and it does all these cool tricks. And when it makes a hard turn, the wheels tumble instead of screech like normal tires would. Anyway, visually it looks cool. Batman's on it with his cape flowing behind it. Pretty awesome addition to the movies. I like the scenes where all the people were on the ferries trying to get across the Gotham harbor, and Joker's holding them hostages with bombs and giving the regular citizens the option of blowing up the inmates and giving the inmates the same proposition to blow up the regular citizens. I thought that was a pretty good scene, depicting the morals of the citizens and the inmates of Gotham and how they were going to resolve that. I mean, that was a pretty good scene. I like that. And I especially like when Joker's plan goes wrong and just the look on his face and his frustration. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to do it myself anyways. I mean, it was just a really cool scene, that whole scene in the movie. I like Harvey Dent in this movie. I like the actor behind him. I like that they introduce early on the flipping of the coin, even though it's almost a humorous way for him to use it in conversation because it's a two-headed coin. But later on, when he becomes Two-Face, and that's actually the difference between him doing something good or evil, and it helps him make decisions. And I also like how they became Two-Face. It's different from the comic books, but close enough, I guess. There is a scene early on where Harvey Dent's in court and a guy tries to kill him. But in the comic books, it would have been a vial of acid thrown at his face, and that's how he would have become Two-Face. But in the movie, the gangster tries to shoot him and he disarms him. So when they took that scene away, it's like, okay, well, how are they going to make him Two-Face? And I thought the way they did it, as far as the movie goes, was pretty ingenious. I know it was different from the comic books, but it was a welcome difference because I like the way that it was done, with the explosion, and he had gas on his face and on that side of his suit. And so later on, when he becomes Two-Face, it makes sense that he's using the same suit that's charred, and then the face that actually had the gasoline on it caught fire, and that's what caused his face to burn. And I think it visually it looks really good on screen. So yes, there's so many things about this movie that I loved when I saw it. But one thing I noticed about it on this rewatch for this review, the last couple times I've watched this movie, a lot of things have really jumped out to me that makes it a little bit harder for me to watch and makes Batman Begins a little bit more rewatchable as opposed to this movie. Even though the Joker is by far, hands down, the best villain between all of these movies and probably any of the Batman movies in the past. There were just some things that even he can't help this movie from. Number one, the characterization of Bruce Wayne and that stupid Batman voice. In Batman Begins, Batman uses a lower register when he was trying to kind of scare somebody. But in this movie, it just seemed like he was using it just in normal conversation. Instead of it sounding intimidating or, I don't know, scary or whatever, I would think that he would use a different voice when he's talking to Commissioner Gordon, but instead he's always using this voice every time he talks, and it just sounds ridiculous. Since this movie's come out, there have been so many parodies and so many comedy skits with that voice and how ridiculous it sounds. It makes it hard to watch the movie because now I just hear the comedic parts of it and it takes all the drama out of it. Now, I remember when I watched the movie, I didn't like the voice then either. That was one of the things when I came out of the movie, wow, that was great. But man, his voice sounded stupid. And I guess I wasn't the only one to say that. Even now, it's hard to watch the movie and listening to him talk. But beyond that, his characterization of Bruce Wayne, it's really odd because Bruce, he's having this relationship with this Russian ballerina girl, and he's seen with her quite a few scenes throughout the movie. Ultimately, he's pining over Rachel Dawes still, when Rachel is clearly moved on. She's clearly in a relationship with Harvey. They're clearly in love with each other. And yet, for some reason, Bruce thinks that if he makes Harvey Dent so powerful and able to put bad guys in jail and take down the criminal element of Gotham to clean it up, if he's able to help him do that, that way he can quit being Batman so that he can have a relationship with Rachel. None of that makes sense because he didn't get into the Batman business to fall in love with Rachel. He got into the Batman business to avenge his parents so that nobody has to be a victim like he was when he was a kid. So for him to have this idea that he's going to wipe out crime through Harvey Dent, and because of that, he won't be Batman, and that'll cause Rachel to fall in love with him, I mean, that just doesn't make sense. It's a weird characterization for Bruce. And then ultimately, when she dies, and she actually writes a note that Alfred actually burns up and never shows to Bruce Wayne. But when she writes a note that says that, hey, we're friends and I choose Harvey and she's definitely moved on, I mean, there's nothing suggesting that in between the two movies that he and Rachel Dawes had any kind of relationship other than a friendship. So it's just very odd to me that they would write it in such a way. I mean, he's just like this lovesick puppy drooling over Rachel, and Rachel wants nothing to do with him in a romantic way. And I just really didn't like that characterization of Bruce Wayne. So let's talk about those fight scenes. Like I said, I didn't really like the fight scenes in Batman Begins. And in this movie, they're a little bit better and in some ways a little bit worse. There's one scene in particular where there's a fundraiser for Harvey Dent and the Joker and his men are up there where Batman shows up. Even though it's a little bit more quick editing, fighting type deal going on like before, it's just a little bit cleaner. It's a little bit more reserved. But later on in the movie, when Batman's fighting SWAT officers and later on fighting the Joker at the top of the skyscraper, it went right back to jump cuts and quick edits and the camera's up close so you can't see what's happening. It's a little bit of a mess again. So even though this movie's only 12 minutes longer than Batman Begins, watching it, especially on rewatches, I mean, I can really feel the length of this movie. And I find myself kind of self-editing the movie thinking, why do we need this or why do we need that? That, like I hinted at in the Batman Begins review with the Rutger Hauer character in it, in this movie, there's a bunch of subplots that really brings the movie down. So subplot number one is a guy named Reese, who I guess he's an accountant guy for Wayne Industries, that initially he's going through the books because of this Chinese deal that Wayne Tech is going to go into, but they decide to pull out because they only wanted to look at his books more. Lucius Fox tells this accountant guy, Reese, to go through the books again. And the second time he goes through the books, he's going through the Wayne Tech books, and he finds out that Wayne Industries is somehow, I guess, funding Batman, and finds out that the Tumbler or the Batmobile was a Wayne Tech creation. So he figures out that probably Bruce Wayne is Batman. So that's kind of this weird subplot that in a over 2.5 hour movie takes up a good maybe 10, 15 minutes chunks of the movie. It's really unnecessary because ultimately that plot goes nowhere. Joker threatens this dude's life because this dummy goes on camera and says that, hey, I know who Batman is. And the Joker threatens him to reveal the identity of Batman. Ultimately, Batman winds up saving his life. Just a subplot of the movie that really, if you cut that part out, it doesn't affect the movie at all. The other subplot I don't like is the Chinese guy, Mr. Liu, who's the mob's bookkeeper and who's in control of all the money. They had this whole thing where Bruce had to go to China to go get him back. That is in the beginning of the movie, and that whole sequence takes a while because he's planning with Alfred, how are we going to get over there? So he takes the ballerina troupe and they're on a cruise somewhere, and he jumps off this boat and he swims to this other boat that's going to smuggle him in, and then he winds up in China. So I guess he had to get to China without people knowing that Bruce is going to go there. I mean, I guess that's the cover. So then when he gets there, they had to figure out how is he going to get him back home. So they had to charter some plane to do some skyhook to get him out of China. It's a lot of goofiness in the story that as I'm explaining it doesn't make sense, because as you're watching the movie, it's like, well, how does he explain to the ballerina troupe where's he going? I mean, he's out on this cruise with all these girls and he jumps off onto this smuggler's plane. What about the smugglers? I mean, who are they? Do they know who Bruce Wayne is? Do they know where he's going with this guy? And it's a lot of weird unanswered questions. And then the plane that skyhooks him out, that gets him out of China, does he have to explain to them, oh, hey, I'm Batman and I'm smuggling this guy? And how does that work? And where do they land? There's a lot of really unanswered questions that could have been answered very quickly. Number one, you could have just said Batman has a plane. I mean, Lucius Fox in the next movie comes out with the Bat, which is just a bat plane. Why couldn't he have shown him that before? And they could have flown that over to China and scooped up the guy and would have skipped all of this. Or do something very simple. Yeah, they have this Lee character, but who's to say he had to be Chinese? Or not the fact that he's Chinese, but why does he have to be from China? Why couldn't he be somebody in Gotham City? Or even somebody in a neighboring city like Metropolis or Star City or Fawcett City, or any one of those DC cities where it could have been a very simple go over there, get him, bring him back. But instead, it just adds more time and it just makes a long movie so much longer for no reason. They did have some beautiful cinematography going on, but there was no real excuse to make it into another country that had to add all these other story elements that were completely unnecessary. The subplot with Jim Gordon dying, I mean, it's kind of cool, but at the same time, when you think about it, why did this even happen? So Jim Gordon gets shot by the Joker during a funeral, and of course he has to actually get shot, but he couldn't have planned that. So there's a chance that he was knocked out when he did get shot. But after that, I mean, they had to call an ambulance, send him to the hospital, get some sort of work done. And in the meantime, he somehow comes up with a story with Batman to pretend that he's dead so that he can go undercover as a SWAT officer and at the end capture the Joker, which is kind of weird because how did this even happen? When an officer gets shot, I mean, there are so many people that are involved, and it's not just a tight group of people because even Harvey Dent didn't know that Jim Gordon had survived. So who knew about this? Who came up with this plan on the spot during the day? Because Batman wasn't even involved. So who did this? Where did this even come from? Because it's later on in the story you find out that his little inner circle are actually turn out to be corrupt cops anyways. So why would they keep the secret of Jim Gordon being shot and killed and actually being alive when later on they give up Harvey Dent and Rachel Dawes, causes Rachel's death and Harvey to become Two-Face? Why were they good for one thing and not good for the other? I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. It makes things a little convoluted. They could have done that completely different or use a different storytelling device. But Jim Gordon, it was almost like it was for the audience. And there was no way as an audience member you're going to believe that Gordon dies from this. He's not even Commissioner Gordon at this point. I think he's just a sergeant or lieutenant, and he's not even commissioner, and they're going to kill him off. I don't think so. So I didn't believe it at the time. Even when I watched the movie and it showed the big reveal when he takes off this mask and he's Jim Gordon, and now on a rewatch, it just seems even worse. It's not exciting. It's not this great mystery, this big great reveal. I don't know. Maybe for people who don't know anything about Batman comics, it's cool, but watching the movie as it plays out and now on rewatches, I really don't like that scene at all. And the last thing I kind of don't like, and it kind of bleeds into Batman Begins as well. I know Batman is a force for good, and I get in Batman Begins when he was trying to save Rachel from the poison from Scarecrow, where he's just basically causing destruction, mass destruction all over Gotham City. He's destroying cop cars that are chasing him. I mean, it could have caused the deaths of some of the police officers. I just didn't understand why in this movie, when he takes over in the Batpod, as he's rolling through Gotham City to chase down the Joker, he's blowing up parked cars, he's shooting weapons and blowing up stuff at a mall, and he's driving through the mall. He's basically causing so much damage throughout the city. And really, why? I mean, it just seems very excessive, other than, ooh, cool on the movie. And then at the end, when he's having this fight with the hostages, when the hostages are dressed up to be clowns and the actual bad guys are dressed up as to look like the hostages, all Batman had to do, because he's in good standing, I guess, with the officers and especially with Jim Gordon, all he had to say was, hey, stop the attack, let me do this, hold back, whatever. But instead of doing that, the SWAT officers, they come in, they try to do their hostage rescue, and instead of Batman taking out the bad guys, he winds up fighting a bunch of SWAT officers, and he's really hurting them too. It's funny, between the two movies, he causes so much mass destruction and probably some really serious injuries to some of the officers that it makes me wonder, why would the police department ever be on Batman's side when he's so destructive and he's beat up so many guys? And it's not like the movies portrayed all of the police department to be corrupt, just a few of them. And it's not really explicit, the ones that he is beating up, are they the ones that were corrupt or are they the nice guys? I mean, you never know. So I don't know. For me, if I were an officer and I just got my ass beat by Batman for no reason other than trying to do my job, I mean, that would piss me off, I think. Anyway, those are some of my biggest gripes about the movie. I'm sure there are a few nitpicks here and there about this movie that I didn't like, and I know it sounds like I'm shitting all over it, but honestly, it is one of the best Batman movies put on screen. The Joker, like I said, without Heath Ledger's Joker in this movie, I mean, I think it would really bring this movie a few notches down, but he really elevates this movie. And I do like Two-Face in it, but why'd they kill him off? I mean, it's just another death caused by Batman in this movie. Is why did they kill off Harvey Dent? It doesn't make sense. And at the end of the movie, the whole resolution of the movie is that they wanted to make sure that Harvey Dent dies a hero and that he wasn't responsible for killing those corrupt cops. And instead, they make sure that they say that Batman was a person who killed those coppers, and now he has to run from the police. That doesn't make sense. You've got the Joker running around out there who's already killing a bunch of people. Why not just blame it on the Joker? Why does it have to be Batman's fault? The end of the movie, it really loses it for me. And for that, I mean, when it comes down to rating this movie, it's, I mean, honestly, I think as a rewatchable movie, I think Batman Begins is the better movie. I gave that a 3.5 stars. And I don't know, man. I don't know if this is a popular decision here, but I think I'm going to give Dark Knight, I think I'm going to give it 3 stars, 3 wheelchairs out of 4. So, with all the success of The Dark Knight, of course, there was going to be a third movie to close out this trilogy. Now, I remember hearing about Christopher Nolan not sure if he wanted to do a third one. And I don't know if it was because there was the intimidation of having such a successful Batman movie, or actually, I don't know what the problem was. But I just remember hearing rumors that he and his brother weren't sure about making a third movie. They weren't sure about what kind of story they were going to come up with. But in July 2012, The Dark Knight Rises was released. Now, I went into this movie with high hopes. I mean, coming off The Dark Knight, especially back then when I was still really in love with the movie, there was a lot of hype for it. I was a big fan of the Bane character. Bane had come out in the 90s, and he was responsible for breaking the bat. That was like his big claim to fame. There was a long storyline where Batman had basically been hunted down by Bane. Bane found out his secret identity, and he came up with this plan to basically wear Batman down to the point to where he did physically confront him, and he actually beat him up and broke his back and took over Gotham City for a while. That comic book storyline lasted for months. And then Batman was taken out of commission. The character, Bruce Wayne, was taken out of Batman comics for several months. I believe at least a year, maybe a little bit longer. And in that time, there was somebody else who replaced Bruce Wayne as Batman. And eventually that person took out Bane. And it wasn't until maybe a year or so later, comic book wise, where Bruce Wayne actually came back as Batman. That was the comic book story. So, I mean, at the time, it was very groundbreaking. It really shook up the Batman mythos. And as far as comic books, I mean, no one had taken out Batman, Bruce Wayne like that before. So Bane was a big player and was a relatively new character. And so when they put him in the Batman and Robin movie, and if you remember, I was very upset about that characterization of Bane in that movie because it was nothing like the comic books. At least in this movie, they promoted him as being the big bad in the movie. He was going to be better than Joker and all this other stuff. And I just remember going in with high hopes and hoping they wouldn't screw it up because they did so well with the Joker and Two-Face last time, except for killing off Two-Face. I just had high hopes for Bane. So when I went to go see this movie, and I went with my wife to go see it, when I left that movie, even then, when I walked out of the movie theater, I thought, they didn't quite hit the mark for me. Ever since then, every time I've seen this movie, I've liked it less and less. And so for this rewatch, I don't have a whole lot of good things to say about this movie. So let's try and get some of the good stuff out of the way. So Jonathan Nolan and Christopher Nolan come back as the writers and Christopher Nolan as the director. I mean, what more can I say about the cinematography and the direction of the movie? I mean, it's gorgeous. The dude knows how to shoot a movie, and especially with all the movies in between the Bat movies that he did and then the movies he's done since. I mean, the guy can shoot a movie, and I love his sticking with doing practical effects. In a time where everything is CGI, this guy uses CGI to a minimum. He uses a lot of miniatures and forced perspective and just really stuff that are in camera that most directors don't use anymore. So I appreciate Christopher Nolan as a filmmaker. As a screenwriter, I don't know whether to put the blame on his brother Jonathan or to put it on to Christopher Nolan himself, but this screenplay, this story is just all over the place. But yeah, as far as the last movie of a trilogy, I mean, they really, really, really dropped the ball here. So as far as the cast goes, most of the returning cast of Batman and Alfred and James Gordon, all of those people return, but let's talk about the new cast. So Tom Hardy is playing Bane. Anne Hathaway is Catwoman. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is playing a character called Officer John Blake. And Marion Cotillard, I think that's how her name's pronounced, is playing Miranda Tate, who later comes out to be Talia. So Tom Hardy is Bane. I mean, the dude's not that tall in real life. I believe he's like 5'9" or something. And Bane in the comic books, he's like 6'4" or something. In the movie, from what I understand, he had to wear like 3 or 4 inch lifts to make him look taller. But the dude, I mean, he put on weight to play this character in this movie. He looks physically intimidating. The camera angles that they use and the way he looks in his outfit, it probably bulks him up a little bit. But yeah, I mean, he just looks like an intimidating dude. But looks can only go so far because eventually you have to talk. And I know this has been parodied a lot too, but man, his voice in this movie, I mean, it's a choice, all right. And I hear that they've tried to explain that he's somewhere from like Spain or something, and he grew up with mixed cultures, so he speaks differently. And that's all fine and dandy, but ultimately you have to be able to understand what the character's saying. And from the opening scene, when the first time he talks, I remember being in the movie theater looking at my wife, Carmen, thinking, what the fuck did he just say? I mean, you couldn't understand him in the movies. My understanding is from home releases and ever since it came out of the movie theaters, they kind of redid the sound design. They made it a little bit clearer so you could understand him. But ultimately, I definitely have to watch it with subtitles because even though they've cleaned up his voice a little bit, I still couldn't understand it unless I was reading the subtitle. So, I mean, that's a big failure to me when you have a main character who talks a lot. You don't understand most of what he's saying. It's pretty ridiculous. And it was just a really bad choice on the director, writer, actor's part, whoever it was, probably a collaboration, and it just wasn't good. Anne Hathaway is Catwoman. So I spoke very highly of the Catwoman from the TV series and the Catwoman from Batman Returns, Michelle Pfeiffer. But for this movie, it's definitely a different take. Anne Hathaway, she's an attractive actress. She's tall. She has long legs, the long hair. She definitely looks like a Catwoman. She never really is called Catwoman in this movie, but she has these eye goggles that when she flips them up, it gives the appearance that she has ears. So again, they're kind of sticking with the realism of this whole thing, and so she doesn't like go meow or anything, but she does have this cute little piano notes when she comes around that gives that little feline impression, which was pretty cute. But through most of the movie, I mean, she kind of like snarls and growls when she's talking to people, and I don't mean like her. It's always like a weird tone that she takes with people. And then when she's playing a part, like when she's playing somebody who's being attacked, or when she's playing a waitress early on in the movie, she takes on a different persona and she seems nicer. And I guess, I don't know, that's probably part of the character, that she's a little bit of a chameleon depending on where she is and what she has to do and what her mission is. But her character as Selena, she's not very warm by any means. And when she's Catwoman, she's just okay. I mean, I like her when she's in the Catwoman outfit, when she's fighting people, but she's just not my favorite Catwoman. She does okay in this movie, but I have bigger problems with other people in this movie. So one of my biggest problems is the characterization of Bruce Wayne again. As I mentioned before in Batman Begins, there's this like platonic relationship between him and Rachel. And Dark Knight, he's still kind of pining over her, even though she's clearly in love with somebody else. And then she dies. But before she dies, she writes a letter to Bruce saying that she's choosing Harvey Dent. Alfred decides not to show him that letter. And so Bruce believes that he was going to be together with Rachel, I guess. But because she died, it's been about 7 or 8 years since the end of The Dark Knight, and he's not been Batman. In the timeline of this movie, of this trilogy, Bruce Wayne has been Batman active for maybe a year and a half, and then was gone for 7 or 8 years. And then in this movie, he's probably active for a brief moment, then disappears for another 3 or 4 months, and then comes back at the end. Collectively, in these three movies, he's been Batman for less than 2 years. And that just doesn't make sense to me as a Batman fan, because Batman, for him, when he decided to avenge his parents, that was a lifelong obsession for a goal of eliminating crime and to prevent people from going through what he went through, losing parents or loved ones or whatever. I mean, it's a goal that's never going to happen, but that was his plan. For this movie to tell me that the reason why he decides to not be Batman is because of Rachel Dawes, the character is not even a comic book character, just somebody made up for the movies and someone that he was never in a relationship with. It just never makes any sense to me why this guy's been moping around for the last 7 or 8 years. She dies, and all of a sudden you forget all about your parents that raised you and loved you and your whole mission to avenge that. But as soon as this girl dies, oh, I'm done, I quit. I mean, that's just the worst characterization of Bruce Wayne I've ever seen. And this movie, it leans hard into that. So eventually, at some point, Bruce decides that he's going to come back as Batman, because this Bane character, he's been kind of threatening people, and apparently there's this thought that Bane is going to attack Gotham City. What kind of wakes Bruce Wayne up a little bit is that he winds up catching Selina Kyle as she's stealing some pearls from a safe. But what he realizes is that Selina, she's actually stealing his fingerprints, and for what reason, he doesn't know. So whether it's out of curiosity, or maybe Selina got him a little horny, I don't know. But he starts following Selina and finds out that she's actually working for this guy named Daggett. Now Daggett, he's a kind of a rival businessman to Wayne Corporation. He finds out that Selina, she's trying to get this software that supposedly will wipe her criminal activity or her background off of every computer system. One of the new main characters in this movie is Officer John Blake, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. In this movie, it's weird. So to stick with the realism of this latest trilogy, they didn't want to add a Robin character. They didn't want to give Batman a partner. What they did was they invented this character of John Blake. He's an officer and he's working for James Gordon. And throughout the movie, he kind of gets this side quest where he goes on, where he's investigating Bane, he's investigating Daggett. At one point, he confronts some construction guys and they try to kill him. And out of self defense, he winds up shooting the two guys and killing them. And then he looks at his gun and he throws it down in disgust, like, dude, you're a police officer. You're just doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're protecting your life. And all of a sudden, you're disgusted by it, which it looks silly on camera, because in the movie, about 5 or 10 minutes later, he winds up picking up a shotgun and he goes off to go, presumably to use this shotgun on somebody, even though minutes before he had just shown his disgust for firearms. I don't know. This character, he's kind of silly because he introduces himself to Bruce Wayne, because at some point he tells him that Bruce Wayne needs to be Batman again. And Batman, or Bruce Wayne, he's just kind of like, well, what do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. And then he goes on to tell this backstory where he was at an orphanage and Bruce Wayne had come out to say hi to them. It's fundraising or whatever. And he gets his chance to meet him. And he realizes, because Bruce Wayne has this same look on his face that he has, because he doesn't have a family, that only a guy as rich as him and with that kind of pain and sorrow, only a guy like that could become Batman. And so he just believes that because of that, that he's kind of uncovered Batman's secret. And so when he confronts him, Bruce doesn't even deny it. He's just like, okay, well, you caught me, kid. Kind of attitude about it. And it's just another one of those, just poor writing, poor choices. I mean, in a way, they're incorporating, even though they don't want him to be a Robin character. At the end of the movie, one of the people tell him, oh, I like your real name. Why don't you use your name, Robin? And the guy, he just kind of shakes his head and walks away. And it's like, okay, you didn't want to put a Robin character in it, but at the end of the movie, you call him Robin. You should have just named him Robin from the beginning. I mean, it's just silly. It was just goofy fan servicey stuff that is sprinkled throughout this movie. And this poor character, I mean, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he's a good actor. He's doing the best that he can with the script that he's given. I think he does a good job, but the character is just so awkwardly written and does so many goofy things throughout the movie that he kind of makes it hard for me to like the character. The last main character that they introduce in this movie is Talia al Ghul. Now, in the movie, throughout the movie, they call her Miranda Tate. She's on the board of directors for Wayne Industries. She kind of has this very brief love affair with Bruce Wayne. Out of nowhere, when you're watching the movie, out of nowhere, they don't have a whole lot of chemistry with each other. There's not a whole lot of screen time with each other, but then they wind up sleeping together. At the end, as it turns out, she's actually the daughter of Ra's al Ghul from Batman Begins, and she's been in charge of Bane this whole time because Bane has gone through this whole thing where he's taken over the city. He's taken this nuclear bomb, and he's gonna detonate the city, and he's turned the city. He's cut off the city from the rest of the country, and he's in charge. And the criminals are running around, causing all kinds of anarchy. And they're actual citizens of Gotham. They're scared. They've been blocked away from the country for 3 months at this point. This dude had done all these things, and as it turns out, he's just a henchman. That Talia al Ghul, at the very end, she basically comes out to be the puppet master, and that Bane has been working for her. It's never really explicitly stated, but Bane is in love with her. But when they explain it in flashbacks, Talia, she's probably about 10 years old or so when she's a prisoner. And when Bane breaks her out or allows her, gives her the chance to break out, he's at least in his 20s, maybe older. That's just weird to me. I have a problem with a 20-year-old being in love with a 10-year-old. And even though they don't explicitly say that they're lovers, it's kind of hinted or implied. Maybe they're just brother and sisterly type love. I'm not really sure, but it's never really said, and it just makes it really uncomfortable and cringy. And it's really bad story writing throughout this whole movie. And that's just another indication of it. Not to mention that when she finally dies at the end, she probably gives one of the worst death scenes ever. Now, I've seen this actress in other movies, and she's done really well. And she's been in a lot of Christopher Nolan movies in particular. But her death scene is just so stupid. I remember being at the movie theater, and people were chuckling and laughing when she dies. And even now, when I watch this movie, it's so eye rolling. Okay, so I know I've gone off on a little bit of a tangent, but basically the plot of the movie, Batman's been gone for 8 years or so. And since then, since Harvey's death, they enacted this law in Gotham City that basically put a whole bunch of criminals behind bars. They called it the Dent Act. James Gordon, he's having a hard time with this because he knows that whole thing was based on a lie, that they said that Batman was the one that killed everybody at the end of The Dark Knight, when in actuality it was Two-Face. So he's having a hard time with that. In the meantime, Bruce Wayne has discovered and somehow built this fusion reactor, and this fusion reactor is meant to make free energy for everybody in Gotham City. Well, the bad thing is he finds out a scientist somehow writes a paper about it and claims that he can turn that into a nuclear reactor. And because of that, Bruce's fear of that actually becoming a weapon and destroying Gotham City, he decides to shelve the project. The problem is that he's used so much of his money and resources to get that project off the ground that he's kind of made Wayne Industries go broke. So at the beginning of the movie, Bane kidnaps that scientist, and the implication is that he's going to use that scientist to make this thing into a nuclear reactor. So Bane, working with Daggett, has been making a mixture of cement with explosives throughout Gotham City, and the big plan is to take over Gotham City, use that bomb, and basically wipe out Gotham City, which is exactly what Ra's al Ghul wanted to do in Batman Begins. And then we find out that really that's the plan of Talia al Ghul, because she's the daughter, and she's actually out for revenge because Bruce had killed her father in the first movie. So that's kind of the plot of the movie. Early on, there's a scene that right before Bruce decides to take on the Batman costume again, he goes to the doctor. And the doctor basically says, "Man, your body's wrecked." He has a bunch of scars on him. He's grinding bone on bone for his ankle, or maybe it was his knee. I don't remember, or his hip. I don't remember. Anyway, the dude's been hobbling around with a cane for the first part of the movie. And at one point, he goes into the Bat Cave, and somehow, they don't explain how, he gets this contraption that goes around his knee that allows him to stand up and I guess makes his legs stronger. And the first thing he does is he kicks a brick wall and breaks off a couple bricks from the wall. Now, I don't know about you, and I'm no doctor. Putting on some contraption around your knee does not make your foot strong. So when you go kicking a wall, your knee might be okay, but your foot is still flesh and bone. It's still going to break your foot. So, I mean, just ludicrous. And then on top of that, later on, when Bane breaks Bruce's back, it's described later by these guys that are in this prison. They tell him that, hey, you have a disc protruding from your back. Now, in the medical world, that could mean a lot of things. But how do they fix it in this movie? This guy hangs Bruce up by a rope under his arms. The guy, he just punches him in the back, presumably to put the disc back in his back. And then he tells him, you're going to hang from this rope until you stand. I know, doesn't make any sense. But sure enough, in the movie's logic, somewhere between that and 3 months, he's back to standing and fighting and being back to normal after all of that. Again, just piss poor writing as far as this goes. Just like in the last two movies, there's always an addition of a character, just like a subplot for extra drama that really is unneeded in this movie. He's a really good actor. His name's Matthew Modine. He's in this movie and he plays this character called Foley. And I guess he's the second command under Gordon. And so when Commissioner Gordon early on in the movie gets injured and put in the hospital and taken out of the movie for a good portion of the movie, the Matthew Modine character kind of takes over the Commissioner Gordon spot. But the problem is that this guy, I mean, unnecessary in the movie because ultimately he goes through a little story arc where he's trying to take over Commissioner's spot. He does kind of momentarily take it over, and then when Bane cuts off Gotham City from the rest of the world, he kind of goes into hiding. And then at the end, he decides he's going to come back and fight with the police officers with Bane's army, and then he gets kind of shot off screen, and then they should just show him dead. It's like, what was the whole point of this character that we spent so much time on, and really he's inconsequential to the movie. You cut him out of the movie, and the movie plays out exactly the same. Another ridiculous part about this movie is Gordon makes the asinine decision to send every police officer available to go into the sewers to go look for Bane. At least most of the entire Gotham City police force is underground. That just so happens to be the time that Bane sets off the explosions that really trap them under the sewers. Now, this nuclear bomb is going to go off in 3 months, or that's what they kind of say. After the 3 months are up and Batman releases the officers and they immediately gather together to go fight Bane's army. Now, I don't know about you, but if I've been underground for 3 months and rationing food with, I don't know, could be hundreds or thousands of police officers underground, I don't know that I would be in a fighting mood. I think honestly I would be suffering from several things, including malnourishment. It's just one of those plot holes that just doesn't make any sense. Because once they start fighting, and maybe it's because they've been underground and they've been crazy, they do nothing tactically. They form up into a mob themselves, and they just rush into Bane's army. And they're shooting automatic weapons at him. They're in tanks. They're in tumbler tanks, and they're firing rounds at him. It's like, why wouldn't you tactically attack Bane's men? Why would you just attack from the front? It just looks like a scene from Braveheart where the two different oppositions, they just clash in the middle, even though they all have firearms and they should be just taking each other out from a distance. It felt to me like the writers just wanted to get this movie over with. So how are the fighting scenes in this movie? Well, they're a little bit better. There's one good scene where Batman actually fights somebody, and that's when he's saving Blake from getting killed by some of Bane's mercenaries. And he takes on a group of guys similar to Batman Begins and Dark Knight, but they pull back the camera a little bit, and you can actually see Batman fighting for once. And it doesn't look too bad. I mean, I was happy to see that. But at the end of the movie, when Batman is fighting Bane, and he's fighting amongst these two warring factions of the police and the terrorists, so conveniently, there's a big circle around Batman and Bane, so it allows them to just fight each other. It looks less convincing. I mean, Batman's just getting his ass handed to him again by Bane, and only by sheer luck when Batman accidentally hits one of Bane's little pipes that's on his mask. Earlier on, it was explained that Bane had some sort of injuries, presumably some sort of internal respiratory injury that I received from getting beat up in the prison cell. and that the prison doctors, they did some sort of crazy Frankenstein type work where they put this mask on him with this respirator, but it's not attached to anything. There aren't any tubes attached to it or anything. So I don't understand what it is that's helping him with his pain, because they said without that mask, the pain is unbearable for him. So he has this weird mask. It looks like teeth. It doesn't make sense what it is or what its purpose is or even what his ailment is. But during this fight, Batman accidentally hits one of the pipes, and immediately Bane he starts crumbling and starts trying to fix his mask. And that's when Batman gets that upper hand and he winds up beating him up. Because once he hit that, I mean, Bane just turned into putty almost. I guess Bane's lucky that in all the people that he's fought with throughout his life, that nobody's ever hit that little pipe there. Because if they had done that, they would have taken out Bane years ago. And he's super lucky that during Batman and Bane's first fight, Batman didn't accidentally hit it then, because this movie could have ended way before it actually ended, which I probably would have preferred. So at the end of the movie, Bane's been taken out. Talia's driving around this truck that has the bomb in the back, and Batman's trying to catch up to it. Batman causes the truck to crash, and she dies. He takes the bomb. Earlier in the movie, they had mentioned that there wasn't any kind of autopilot in this bat plane of his. They made mention of it a couple times during the movie. So it's like, okay, autopilot's going to somehow be a factor at the end of this movie. So at the end, Batman hooks the bomb up to the bat plane. He kisses Selina Kyle. Well, Selina Kyle, now she's in her Catwoman outfit. But he kisses her before he gets on the bat plane. And it's like this weird kiss where, I mean, I guess it's supposed to be romantic, but it's not like the music swells or where the camera does a spin or anything or something like that. I mean, nothing like that happens. Like they kind of kiss because we're supposed to. And then he hops into the bat plane. And at this point, Commissioner Gordon walks up. They have like their final conversation because they're making you believe that in the audience that Batman's probably going to die. So they have this conversation where Bruce basically tells Commissioner Gordon, "Thank you for showing me comfort when my parents died." And so Commissioner Gordon realizes that Batman is Bruce Wayne as they fly off. That to me was a bigger emotional connection and a much more, I guess, if you want, romantic scene than anything that just happened between him and Selina Kyle. But anyway, Bruce flies off. He takes off in the bat plane. The bat plane goes over the water. They do this quick edit to make you believe that he's still in the cockpit. And then the thing blows up over the ocean. So the rest of the movie is people mourning the loss of Batman, who really, like I said earlier, had only been operating in Gotham City for a very short amount of time. And during that time, he was kind of a menace. He was destroying property, public property, private property, beating up police officers. He was doing all kinds of things. I mean, I agree that, okay, he saved the city from getting blown up. But up to that point, it's like, who's really celebrating this guy? Regardless of that, they do this montage of people saying goodbye to Bruce. Because at that point, they bring back Alfred, who had left the movie halfway through because of that confrontation he has with Bruce Wayne regarding him becoming Batman again. So Alfred shows up at the end of the movie basically just to cry. And it's funny because this last time watching it, Michael Caine is crying. He's looking into the camera and he's saying, "I failed you. I failed you." And in my mind, this last time I was watching, I'm thinking maybe that was Christopher Nolan telling us that he failed us on this last movie. I mean, maybe it's a little meta, I don't know, but maybe he was trying to tell us something. The movie ends with Morgan Freeman. He goes to check on the other bat planes, I guess, that they have at Wayne Industries. And he has this conversation with the mechanics. They say, "Oh yeah, the autopilot got fixed like 6 months ago." And he asks, "Well, who fixed it?" And they look at the thing and go, "Oh, it says here Bruce Wayne." So of course, now Morgan Freeman knows, oh, Bruce Wayne is still alive. And then the last scene of the movie, or one of the last scenes of the movie, is Alfred is off somewhere having coffee, and he looks over and he sees Bruce with Selina having breakfast together, and they just kind of nod at each other in some sort of acknowledgement. It's a reference to earlier in the movie, and that's it. So Alfred gets to know that Bruce is still alive, living his life, not as Bruce Wayne, but I guess in a relationship with Selina Kyle. So the last silly part of the movie and the way the movie ends, Bruce Wayne, I guess, leaves a duffel bag for John Blake. And this is where we find out that the character's name is Robin. There's a map of some sorts in this duffel bag, because then Blake goes on to drive to the entrance of the Batcave where the waterfall is, and he takes some climbing gear and he gets in there. And then the last scene of the movie is him stepping on this platform that's rising up. It's left you to believe that John Blake is now going to become Batman, or maybe Nightwing, or whatever, but some sort of crime fighter at the end of this movie. And that's how the movie ends. So that's it. That's the end of the Dark Knight trilogy. Like I said, from such a strong beginning with Batman Begins to a very strong middle arc with The Dark Knight, even though I do have my issues with it now, I mean, it's still a really strong movie. But by the time they get to Dark Knight Rises, the whole idea of realism and everything else, it just really goes out the door. So many plot holes and subplots that go nowhere, things that don't make sense, Bruce's characterization, the fact that Alfred just up and leaves him, taking out Jim Gordon halfway through the movie. And by the way, how did Bruce Wayne get back to Gotham City? I mean, he was at this hole somewhere in the Middle East, somewhere, maybe, who knows where, and then he just pops up in Gotham City, no problem. Explain that to me. The Blake character, I'm assuming that they took out the Gordon character so that Blake could go around and do all the stuff that Gordon may have been doing had he not been taken out of the movie, only to reveal that Blake will be carrying on the mantle of Batman later on into possibly a series. If it ever continues on, maybe Blake would carry on as Batman. Just the choices that were made for this movie just are nonsensical. I don't know if you can tell or anything, but man, I really hate this movie. And it was a real tough time going through this movie again. I kept thinking, this isn't as bad as Batman and Robin, but it is pretty bad. And I gave Batman and Robin a half star on the last time for my wheelchair ratings. I'm not going to do much better this time. So if I have to rate The Dark Knight Rises on a 1 through 4 wheelchair score, I don't know, man. I think I'm going to have to give it a 1. Damn. This movie sucks and it deserves it. Okay, so that was part 4 of my Batman extravaganza. Batman is my favorite character. I mean, I tried to keep it to 4 or 5 episodes. I know I had to stretch it out. I have at least one more episode to go. If you like what I'm doing, please hit that like button. If you want to subscribe and see more of me, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification. At the end of when I'm reviewing these movies, I'm going to rank them all from the ones I like from the least to the best. And I might do a little bonus episode. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet exactly how I'm going to do it, but please continue watching, continue liking, continue subscribing. And don't forget, my name is Trini. I am the Batquad, and I am the End of Watch.